Hi guys, this is Dr. Michael Dody, and we are here for a seminar, Put Bedwetting to Bed. And I am super excited about getting and doing this seminar because we do a lot of pediatric stuff. If those of you don't know me, I'm a chiropractor in Littleton, Colorado, and we've been doing a lot of educational stuff, especially around pediatrics. And this is a topic that, if it affects you, it is definitely a serious issue, and we want to make sure that you have some strategies to help yourself and help your kids deal with this bedwetting. And I am super excited to have somebody helping us out today that we were blessed to meet through my daughter Abigail. Went to Patience was her teacher in preschool, and my wife Heather went to one of Patient's potty training classes, and let me tell you, I wish we would have went to it earlier because it absolutely changed the way that we did potty training for Lucy. And Lucy is not even a year old, and she's already completely potty trained. So Patience has been amazing, and she is a early childhood development specialist, and she has a business called the Family Room here in Denver, Colorado. And let me tell you, you are going to learn some stuff from Patience. So welcome, Patience, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be able to do this with you.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm super excited. Thank you. So we're going to get into, and I'm just going to kind of ask you some questions and again, get your expertise around the problem of bedwetting with kids, and any information that you definitely can let us know. But obviously this can be a pretty universal problem. So tell me a little bit about what you know as far as the background of bedwetting and some of the symptoms that we see.
Sure. So bedwetting is unfortunately a very common problem in the United States. We don't really worry about bedwetting until children are really over 3. And then even then we give them some leeway because sometimes, it's just a matter of development of size of the kid, size of their bladder, and gaining and making sure that all that control is in place. But, children, there are millions of children in the U.S. who have this issue. And there's lots of different reasons why it can happen, but it's an involuntary response of releasing of the bladder during sleep. And it's not something that children do purposefully. It's something that is embarrassing and frustrating for both the child and the rest of the family.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense, because I know that, when you're, you have this issue, it definitely can be really tough. Now, and I don't know about your experience, do you notice that this happens more with boys than girls, or is that something that I've also known? Is that true?
So we do see it more often with boys, but that probably has more to do with the fact that we tend to wait longer to toilet train boys.
Gotcha.
There's a belief that they take longer, it's harder, and it's going to be more difficult, and to wait. And so, yes, more boys tend to have bedwetting issues than girls do, but that isn't necessarily based on a biological difference between girls and boys, because there are plenty of girls who deal with this issue as well. So.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. That with how we're actually doing the potty training, it definitely makes sense that would be the case. So now I've put up some commonly suggested solutions, that we talk about as far as like waterproof sheets, alarm systems, and stuff. What have you found? Do these work, or what have you found as far as some of the solutions that you've seen out there?
Yeah, so these really are common suggestions made to families who are dealing with this issue. So, putting on shock-proof covers to protect the sheets, putting layers and layers of covers on the sheets, so that when there's accidents, you can strip it down and get the kid back to sleep easily. Setting alarm systems so that you can go, the child can be roused if they're not rousing and they're just asleep, very deeply asleep, which is causing the issue. Watches or alarms for older children to be reminded that they need to go. Avoiding too many fluids, especially toward the end of the day, to try to limit the need to go to the bathroom through the night. Those are the ones that are sort of most common given. Reward systems are ones that parents often will use first, thinking that they can sort of incent a child to stop doing it, which, because it's not really a voluntary or a chosen behavior, it's usually a deeper cause than that. Reward systems are typically pretty ineffective.
Okay.
Some of the other suggestions and tools can be helpful depending on exactly why the child is having the issue. And then there's the medical side where you can, go and get prescribed medications that help to prevent involuntary urination, but those are usually really harsh and hard on the system, and cause often more side effects than helpful effects. So,
yeah, I agree with you there. That's what my experience has been with that as well. Can I just double click on something like the don't drink too much? What is your take on that? I mean, is that really the issue, or does that actually help? I'm not sure. Like, we don't have this issue, so what is that something that really does affect urination at night involuntarily?
So for younger children who have smaller bladders, if they're drinking a large amounts of fluid during the day and in the evening, it can make it more difficult for them just to have the capacity to hold the fluids through the night, which is causing them to wet. But that's typically for children who are much younger. We're looking at 3, 4, and 5-year-olds where limiting their fluids may help, but they have to be drinking a lot of fluid, a lot of water, a lot of juice, a lot of milk, over 20 to 30 ounces in the second half of the day for this to really be the cause of why a child is wetting. And reducing it, usually we need to reduce their intake anyway in order to encourage them to eat, because those children often just drink instead of eat. And that can sometimes lead to bedwetting, but again, that's not the major cause for most bedwetting issues.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. And to also kind of like, go in onto that medications, some of the side effects that I've read for some of these medications are things like, nausea, stomach pain, things like insomnia, which, that's not great for parents, and they don't sleep, headaches, things like that, even anxiety stuff that's going on with some of the side effects of the medications that they prescribe for bedwetting, which I know as a parent of 2 young ones, I don't know if I would want any of those side effects for my daughters for sure. So if you
right, are those side effects really better than having to deal with wet sheets?
Exactly. So
another one that isn't listed here that I have actually heard urologists recommend is actually voluntary holding during the day in order to try to stretch the size of the bladder, which, as you can imagine, can cause some very interesting complications in teaching children to hold it instead of release during the day, as well as cause stomach pains and other medical issues from just holding the urine in for too long.
Yeah, that kind of sounds a little scary sometimes too.
Yeah.
So let's kind of just dive into what you've seen as far as the effectiveness of some of like these the way things are done with that. I know everybody's pretty unique, so tell me a little bit what you've noticed as far as effectiveness of some of these strategies.
So The problem with all of these strategies is that they're dealing simply with the symptom of bedwetting. Bedwetting is sort of the external result of usually something else that's going on, either physically or psychologically happening with the child. So whereas in some cases, these techniques that deal with, waking up to go, or allowing the child to wet so that it wakes them up and reminds them that they need to go to the bathroom, in some cases can help. Most of the time, they're very ineffective because they don't deal with the cause. They just deal with the symptom, the external showing of whatever the root cause or the problem is. And since we're not addressing that problem, it really doesn't do a very good job of taking care of the bedwetting issue.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So with that said, why does bedwetting occur? I mean, what is the root cause behind that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons that children wet the bed. There's that they're stressed is a really big reason. A large sense of stress. We sometimes forget. We think young children have this, life of ease and don't have things that they have to worry about. But
Right.
the things for us that sometimes seem silly for them can be very stressful and really hard on them. An example for that is we were traveling last summer with our family doing a road trip, and we were coming to the end of our trip, and we were staying with some family, and my 10-year-old had been having just a hard time. He was missing his home, he was missing his pets, he was just really having a hard time and ready to be home, and ended up wetting the bed when we were on vacation, which he hadn't really ever done ever in his entire life. But he was just so stressed, and that stress really does impact the way that our pelvic floor talks to the rest of our body. So stress is a huge cause that often doesn't get enough importance played for young children, and how to ease the stress that they're feeling.
Definitely agree on that for sure. Now, we were talking a little bit about some of the neurology of this too, and we were talking specifically about bedwetting and the phrenic reflex and stuff. And I know you talk about that in your potty training as well, just about the development of neurology. Is that also, can that be some of the underlying cause?
Yeah, in fact, I think there's a lot of this is a huge cause for a lot of toileting and especially bedwetting issues, is the communication of the pelvic floor to the brain and back and forth. Is the message getting sent strong enough? Is it getting sent fast enough? Is it being sent back fast enough so that the child can hold it and respond based on what's going on with the nervous system in the body? And there's a lot of things that can happen just with the alignment of the body being out of place that can affect blood flow to that area, pinched nerves, all of those kinds of things can play a huge impact in the ability for the brain and the pelvic floor to talk to each other so that the releasing and holding can happen appropriately.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you wanted to definitely stress that kids don't want to wet the bed, and I know that that is a big thing. Sometimes we have parents that come in and are so frustrated by this, but it really isn't the kids wanting to do this.
Yeah, who wants to wet themselves? Most children have a huge amount of shame and guilt associated with it, and try their best to avoid it and feel awful and feel bad. And sometimes if we put it on them as if they're doing something wrong, then we can increase their stress, throw off their hormones, and sort of cause impact and compound the issue instead of make it better.
Yeah, that makes that absolutely. Tell me a little bit about the impacted bowels. We talked a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting thing is what can happen often, especially with children who are having some sort of toileting issues, is that they often will hold or not release all of the way. And so you can get backup in your bowel of just, poop residue that hasn't been able to pass completely. And as it accumulates and it grows, it does very interesting things inside the body that causes pressure on the bladder, which then makes it very difficult for a child not to have urination involuntarily.
That's very interesting. I had not heard that, but after doing a little bit more looking into it, it can be one major issue in the bedwetting incidences. That's really interesting. And we talk about subluxations, and I guess that's kind of my area of expertise, and that gets back into the neurology of it, the fact that that nervous system being the master system that controls and coordinates, for example, the bladder and the emptying and the all of the portions of what's going on with that, definitely is a major part that when there's some misalignment, and that's what I often find with kids is after running around, playing on the playground, falling down, learning to walk, all these things that cause the physical stresses along with the other stresses you were talking about definitely can cause misalignment and cause stress on those nerves, and then the organ, specifically the bladder, doesn't receive those signals that they need to do things properly. So that is another thing that we see here at the clinic as well with why it does occur. Let's move on to the first step. So for the parents that are wanting to know what's the first step? What do we do to help out kids with the bedwetting stuff?
It's super important to communicate with children, even very young children, as to what's going on. Validate them where they are, how hard this must be for them, the difficulty that they're having, reduce their stress about it, take the blame off of them, really allow for them to have a place to talk about how they're feeling about it, what they feel like might be helpful for them, trying to get them to express how they're experiencing going to the bathroom. So that you can really reduce the stigma around the issue for children.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense, just to try to get to the underlying cause and finding out. And sometimes we don't think about that with young kids, but it really is helpful to do that, isn't it?
It is, and children really understand a vast amount even before they're verbal. And one of the things I often find with a lot of issues that parents have with their children is that they forget to say, guess what, this is a problem that we need to work together to solve, instead of getting frustrated and trying to solve the problem outside of the child knowing and you talking about this issue and the things that you're going to do to help them and the things that they can do to help themselves.
I love that. Yeah, it's such a huge thing, and it really helped us as far as even like potty training with Lucy. Talking to her, even though she wasn't necessarily, she is pretty verbal for her age, but I mean, even though it's she didn't necessarily, you don't necessarily think that they know what's going on. When you talk to them, it's pretty amazing what they do. So
yeah,
let's get into some of the natural remedies that you know of, and I listed a few here, but definitely get into other stuff that you use or you recommend to parents that you help.
Yeah. So depending on what's going on, one of the things we definitely look at is the diet and what children are eating. We tend to feed children very high carbohydrate diets, which can actually trigger going to the bathroom and toileting issues. Too much sugar, too much caffeine, sodas, and all of those kinds of things can really impact the entire body, but especially, if you have a child who is bedwetting, we want to look at making sure that their diet is nice and healthy and taking out a lot of the, things that we all know are not great things for
Right.
children to have. Doing allergy testing can be very helpful to see if there's a specific nutrient or food that's causing a problem or an issue. And there's different ways that you can do allergy testing to kind of see what's going on. So
And I was going to just kind of like, have you noticed that because there's so much with food allergies right now with kids and the different things like, the artificial dyes, the artificial sweeteners, all the processed foods, but then you get into things like, the dairy, the wheat, gluten, as we all know, even sometimes like soy and nuts and things like that. Have you noticed those play a role or a possible role with the bedwetting?
I have. In a few different cases of people that I've worked with, it sort of, in those children went hand in hand, is that there were some dietary issues. Their body was just having a hard time processing food, and, releasing the bowel and the bladder is sort of that last process of processing food. And when the body is inundated with too many things that it can't handle, oftentimes it will cause either, an excess amount of going to the bathroom or not enough going to the bathroom. And so both can cause and result in bedwetting.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. Yeah, definitely. The body sometimes wants to get that stuff out, so
Right.
you'll see it that way as well. And now obviously with chiropractic care, that's where we kind of step in here with our clinic, and we know that what I've seen. And the interesting thing is, I had a young boy who came in who was having these issues, and it wasn't all the time, but there were definitely times. And obviously when we look back at some of the underlying causes, the stress, like with your son and the situation on vacation, same thing happened. And during times of high stress, he would wet the bed. And so we went through and we checked him out and found out that there was some interference in the nerves that were in the lower back that go down to the bladder. So we did some pretty minor adjustments there, that we could help out to reconnect those nerves. And even during those high stress times after that, he didn't have the issue of wetting the bed. And let me tell you, for him, that was a huge thing because, as you said, you get that stigma going, and even things like sleepovers or times where you're traveling in the car and like fall asleep, or things that can kind of be stressful and scary because you're not sure if you're going to wet the bed. For him, when he knew he wasn't going to do that, it really made a huge difference. And the other thing too is when the body definitely is, when it's in alignment, not only are things going to function properly, but those hormone levels can normalize. And if it is a hormonal thing, that definitely helps out with the bedwetting, and that's another thing that we see quite a bit with the chiropractic care. And obviously, the benefit of that, as compared to medications, is guess what? No side effects. So
Right.
that's the really
Yeah.
cool thing with that.
Chiropractic care is such an amazing tool and um, uh, therapy that's available and out there. I think a lot of people forget that using it with children can be so beneficial. I run into people all the time who, they go to the chiropractor themselves, but they don't think that children need it. And, it's like you were saying, they're out on the playground, they're falling over, their bodies are growing, they're knocking their heads, they're falling down, and all of those things can throw their body, just tweak it, and it can be out of whack, and it can have huge impact on their hormone levels and the way that the growth of their body, and then these other deeper things of controlling the bladder and the bowel, appetite, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is amazing when you talk about that, because we have people who come in here all the time and they see me adjusting kids and they're like, "Why are you adjusting them? They don't have back pain, do they?" And it's kind of funny because it's not necessarily about back pain. It's about that growth. It's about the development. It's about hitting those genetic windows, making sure that they develop absolutely properly so they can do everything that they need to do to grow up to be, at maximum potential. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because it is really true that people just don't even think about their kids in chiropractic. And obviously I'm pretty blessed that I can adjust my girls, and it's just amazing to see how they grow up, and the kids that we see in here, how amazing it is when they're growing at full potential. So is there any other natural remedies that you can think of that we might want, like, people might want to check into?
I've been thinking about that, and really the big thing is looking at how to reduce psychological and hormonal issues, and those almost all come back to the same thing of diet. The other thing that really can make a big difference that I noticed is activity level. So we all know that we need to get up and move, and that we are a more sedentary society than we've ever been before, but children especially need to be active and moving. And the more that we move, the more that the blood can flow properly to all of our organs and to run. And it is definitely, there seems to be a little bit of a correlation between children who are having bedwetting issues and children who are not getting enough exercise.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree 100% with you that activity is such a huge thing. The kids need to be active and getting out there and playing, and not, sitting around watching TV all the time and doing things like that. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, great, amazing stuff. That I really appreciate all of your insights, because like I tell you, I mean, you've done amazing things for us, and I know that you've done amazing things in educating other people with the potty training stuff. Do you have any stuff coming up that you want to talk about?
So my next potty training class is in August, and I'm just double checking on the date there.
But if they want to find out more information about the family room, how do they find that out?
Yeah, so you can visit the Family Room website, which is www.thefamilyroomdenver.com, and go to our schedules page. You can also visit my personal website, which is patiencebleskin.com, and find all the information there. So we've got my next potty training class I'm teaching is not on my schedule. I think it's the 12th or the 19th of August.
Awesome. So they can just go to the website and find out that information.
Yeah, the dates are on there. Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, I really, really appreciate all the information that you gave us, and I'm super excited, and I hope that we can talk to you down the road again. If as far as some of the other stuff, maybe we'll try to get into something about potty training as well, because you're a master at that. Let me tell you, it's very amazing. And just to let you guys know, these are some of the events that we are doing, upcoming events that we have coming up. We're going to be doing next month backpack seminar for kids, obviously heading back to school, and then the following month we're actually going to be talking about Delivered, a pregnancy and home birth workshop, which is natural pregnancy and home birth. So if you guys have any interest in that, the website is there. And the other thing too is if you guys are having issues with not only bedwetting, potty training, things like that, give us a call here, and we can get you checked out and get your child checked out to make sure there isn't any neurological issues. And if that's the case, we can also get you to the resources like Patience, and make sure that we can get this taken care of, so your kid doesn't have that shame or stigma of having to wet the bed and all the stress along with that. So once again, Patience, thank you very, very much. I appreciate all of your help, and I know that you helped a lot of people out.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure. I look forward to doing it again.
Yes, awesome. Everybody have a great day, and if you have any questions, once again, you can either go to Patient's website or our website, and we will definitely help you out as much as we can. Have a great day.
Bye.